Hello. It's funny how things come together, isn't it? Because I was going to make a video about, well, the police and our attitude to the police, but it had to do with our attitude to ourselves as well. And then I happened to come across this article here. So I thought that actually ties in with what I was going to talk about, but it would have been a bit complicated to bring it into an article about the police. So I decided to do a quickie just about this. All right, it says here, hunger stones with dire warnings have been surfacing in Europe, and it's an article by somebody called Christopher Carbone, Fox News. And that's funny because you wouldn't expect that sort of article from Fox News because it's full of CBS type doom and gloom. So this stone is inscribed, "If you see me, weep." And it's because it's exposed on the bedrock of a river that normally should have covered it. It wasn't covering it because there's a drought. And things have been pretty bad in Europe. We have friends in Bulgaria, and in Sofia in the last month it was regularly 40 degrees, and the university had to start lectures first thing in the morning because by the afternoon it was just not possible to sit in those un-air-conditioned rooms anymore. So anyway, let's get on with this article. Those foreboding words written in German in 1616 and inscribed on a hunger stone in Central Europe have reappeared after a prolonged drought caused water levels on some parts of the continent to drop. This is I'm sorry, Christopher Carbone, but from the University of the Bleeding Obvious, you take a first-class degree because, well, the stones have traditionally sat below the waterline near the Elbe River in the Czech Republic, but because the current drought is so intense, about a dozen of them have now been revealed. The authors of a 2013 study on historic droughts in the region said the stones, which all contain similar bleak messages and often date back hundreds of years, were chiselled with the years of hardship and the initials of authors lost to history. These people would have died in a drought at that time. They or their families, certainly their children, old people are the most vulnerable, of course. So they are sad messages from a sad past. Another stone in Germany records the following message: "If you will again see this stone, so you will weep, so shallow the water was in the year 1417. It's not clear why the messages are so distraught. They're dying of thirst and hunger. Experts say that when a severe drought arrived, it could signal a bad harvest. It could signal a bad harvest, yes, which could lead to a lack of food." This Carbone, man. Well, as I said, the University of the Bleeding Obvious. Of course, if water levels continued to sink, then there would be no water for the crops and the crops would die. Where's your brain, man? And then it finishes with the Elbe at its lowest level in at least half a century, the drought is misprint, also uncovering things like unexploded World War II bombs. Well, that's quite dangerous too. But let's look at this article again. He's talking about the terrible drought, and he mentions that this is the first drought of this sort in half a century. And then he talks about a previous drought in 1616 and 1417, well before man-made global warming was any sort of an issue. So it's obvious there are droughts, humankind or not. But the whole tone of the article somehow seems to imply that humans are responsible for this one. Now, we may well be responsible for some of the global warming. I think the jury is still out on that, but I think the weight of evidence is probably in favour of that. What does that mean? Does it mean we've got to stop living? Yeah, there's a huge population, much bigger than anyone thought the world could support in previous years, and we're managing things, and we will manage things again if we get our act together, if we think about problems and try to solve them, instead of just beating our breasts and saying, oh, the world's coming to an end and we're responsible. That's not the way to deal with a situation like this. As it so happens, if the crops fail in Czechoslovakia or Germany, then they get their wheat from America or Canada, or they take to rice and get that from China. The point is, together with our global warming activities, we are also doing things that feed ourselves. We're improving our lives. We can find ways to deal with this, and it's obvious that these things happen whether we are responsible for them or not, one way or the other. And it's these sorts of articles in which we're encouraged to believe that there's no hope for us, that we should just weep about the situation. That's what's going to cause problems in the future, not looking at this and thinking, well, thank God we don't depend on the rain in our part of the world. Now we can get food from elsewhere if we need to, because we've got boats that, run on diesel, and we've got planes that run on aviation spirit, and we've got machines that create carbon dioxide. We're doing these things and then we're finding solutions for them. Meanwhile, we're all eating. Most of us. There is starvation in the world, but much, much, much less than there ever was in previous generations. And this article could have mentioned that sort of thing, and it doesn't. We have to stop thinking like this. That way, madness lies. I'm very grateful for financial contributions. But if you don't want to give money, you can still help a lot by sharing this and other videos I've made. Also, remember to check your subscription from time to time, as sometimes subscriptions get erased for one reason or another. Till next time.